So, what is international business really? Most of us probably think it's just, business, but on a bigger map. But what if I told you that simple idea is just completely wrong? Today, we're going to dig into what international business really is by first figuring out what it isn't.
And you know what? We're going to figure this all out with a simple little puzzle. It sounds super simple, but trust me, the answer is going to totally flip how you see the entire global economy.
All right, here it is. Let's say you sell a t-shirt online. A few clicks, you print a shipping label, and poof, it's off to another country. So the big question is, does that one sale make you an international business? Now, common sense says, yeah, of course, but the real answer? Well, it's more like, maybe not. And figuring out why, that's the key to this whole thing.
Okay, to crack this, let's start with the definition that probably jumps into your head first. The standard textbook one. It's basically any business deal that crosses a national border. Simple. Seems super clear, right? Logical. Case closed. Or is it?
Yeah, not so fast. See, that simple definition, it feels right, but it's missing a massive piece of the puzzle. What it does is it kind of implies that selling something from, say, Texas to Mexico is pretty much the same as selling from Texas to Oklahoma. It's just a bigger map, right? But let me tell you, anyone who's actually done that will tell you it is a completely different ballgame. And that's because crossing a border isn't just about adding more miles. Nope, it's a fundamental shift in the entire game. So let's really break down what makes this so much more than just business on a bigger map.
And this image, wow, it just illustrates the difference perfectly. See, at home, business is a nice straight line. You've got one currency, one set of rules, one culture, pretty much. But the second you cross that border, that simple path just explodes into this tangled web of new stuff you suddenly have to deal with.
I really love this next visual because it frames the border like a prism. Think about it. A simple beam of domestic business goes in one side, and bam, it comes out the other, split into 4 totally new, complex dimensions. You've got cultural, legal, and political, economic, and even geographic differences to worry about.
So, okay, what's the one thing, the single biggest factor that creates this tangled mess? Out of all those dimensions we just saw, which one is the real game changer that separates the local league from the World Cup? Well, the answer might surprise you. It isn't distance, it isn't language, it's not even culture. It's all about power.
And right there, that's it. That's the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. When you're doing business at home, you're playing under one ultimate authority, right? But the moment you cross that border, you're suddenly in a brand new sandbox with a totally new boss who gets to make all the rules.
And this gets a name. It's called sovereign intervention. Think of it this way. Each national government is the final boss in its own territory. They have the power to make and change the rules, to create incentives, to throw up massive barriers that can completely change how you do business. And get this, their rules don't have to play nice with anyone else's.
And that is where all the friction comes from. All of a sudden, you're trying to follow the laws of multiple sovereign states. You might have to deal with US law and the EU's GDPR at the exact same time, even when those rules totally contradict each other. This is what creates something called political risk, which is just a fancy way of saying there's a real danger that a government somewhere could make a decision that just, poof, wipes out your profits overnight.
Okay, so let's go back to our t-shirt puzzle. If you took government out of the equation completely, that sale would just be, well, you could call it extra domestic business. It would just be driven by normal market forces like supply and demand. But true international business, that's different. It's not really about finding the most efficient market anymore. It's about how you strategically respond to the barriers and rules that governments put up on purpose.
All right, so if we've established that true international business is this high-stakes game of navigating government power, where is that game being played the most intensely? Well, the answer is in the engines of the world economy.
You can think of the global economy as existing on a spectrum. On one end, you've got the mature markets. Think of them as the big, stable anchors of the developed world. But on the other end, you have the emerging markets, and these are the powerful engines that are driving global growth and expansion. And that's the main arena.
And a huge reason they're called the engines, it really comes down to demographics. See, a lot of emerging markets are getting this demographic dividend, a massive wave of young people who are fueling production and consumption. Meanwhile, many of the mature markets are facing the opposite, a demographic burden, sometimes called a silver tsunami, where shrinking workforces are putting a real strain on their economies.
And you can see that raw demographic power right here in the growth projections. Just look at that. Emerging markets are projected to grow more than twice as fast as advanced economies. And a big driver of this is the catch-up effect. Basically, they can grow like crazy just by adopting technologies that already exist, instead of having to invent everything new from scratch.
Okay, but here's where everything we've been talking about really clicks into place. This massive opportunity in emerging markets is directly tied to immense risk. And guess where that risk comes from? You got it. It stems directly from that sovereign intervention, that government power that we were just breaking down.
I mean, just look at this incredible disconnect. So emerging markets make up almost half of the real global economy, the part that actually makes stuff. But they only represent a tiny little sliver of the global financial market. That huge gap, that's just massive potential energy. It's pure opportunity.
But, and this is a big but, that opportunity is just the tip of a very dangerous iceberg, because lurking just below the surface are these huge, hidden risks all created by sovereign power. You've got currency risk, where a government's policy decision can tank the value of your investment. And you've got that political risk, where the rules of the game can just change on you without any warning. The financial market is smaller for a reason. The risks are way big.
So okay, given this whole landscape, massive opportunity on one side, huge sovereign risk on the other, how do you actually win? Well, it's not about some new tactic or trick. It's about a completely new global mindset. And here's the bottom line, really. Success in true international business, it isn't really about having the best product or the cleverest marketing. No. At its very core, it's a policy discipline. It's about understanding politics, it's about navigating complex regulations, and it's about knowing how power really works in those countries.
So this is the fundamental choice, the big trade-off. You can choose to stay in that lower left box, the relative safety and, let's be honest, the saturation of your home market. Or you can make a conscious strategic choice to accept way more complexity and risk in exchange for getting access to the other 95% of the world's population and all the almost unlimited growth potential that comes with it.
So, after all this, what's the one skill that truly matters the most? It's not a technical skill. It's not about being a wizard with a spreadsheet or supply chain genius. It's your tolerance for ambiguity. It's being comfortable making smart decisions even when you don't have all the answers, because you know the rules are constantly changing under your feet. Which, brings us to one last really crucial question for the future. In our world today, with global tech platforms and digital currencies, it can really feel like borders are just disappearing. But does that really mean that national governments are losing their power, or are they just building new kinds of walls? Are there new interventions in things like data privacy and digital taxes actually becoming the new, most important battleground in business? Definitely something to think about.